Morning Prime. It is the 18th of July 2024 and the Gen Z is still saying, okay, we're continuing with the protests today. We continue to occupy everywhere. And we know there is a statement from the acting IG regarding the protest that now it has been banned indefinitely. And that is bound to also spark a lot of reactions when you talk about the article in the Constitution, that is Article 37 as well. So what does that really portend? These are the questions that we'll be probing. And of course, every Thursday have Sokoni coming your way. And in Sokoni, we focus on matters of the economy. And what is the impact of this protest going forward? We know businesses were affected adversely because of the shutdowns, and we will see the effects of this months later. We're joined this morning with our panelists who are already here in studio. I'll walk over there to just say hi to them. And we're joined by Patrick Obath, who is the chair of KEPSA Foundation. We're also joined by Gituro Wainaina. We'll come and say hi to our new home. A hearty welcome. Yeah? Welcome to our new home. Not say hi to our new home, but welcome you to our new home. Right? Yeah, and this man has been in the Sky team. Right? Globe-trotting. Good to see you. While you are away, a lot happened.
A lot. I agree.
Baba, while you are away, yeah, we moved to a new abode. Baba,
Very nice. Very nice.
fantastic. Yes, so we have a lot lined up for you. Of course, we shall be joined much later by Professor X and Iraqi as well. And we slice and dice matters economy as well. A big win for SMEs. I can see that Absa Bank, they've partnered with Old Mutual, and there's some products for SMEs when it comes to especially insurance, and they're widening the scope of political violence. A lot of what we're going through, I think that is coming through providentially, and how pivotal is SMEs when it comes to the GDP, because they actually have a huge component. 30% is a contribution as far as the growth of or the economy of a country is concerned. So you'll tell us more about what is happening on that particular sector, what has been the impact of the protest with the SMEs as well moving forward. And we shall be discussing also a raft of other issues regarding the fuel prices that went up, because people are saying in a very furtive way. We have EPRA adding the 7 shillings there, right, of the road levy that we had ministers, or the former minister, categorically telling us that is not really happening. There will be no raising of the fuel levy, but that at the pump is now dramatically different. We shall be looking at that as well. And Patrick Obath, you remember we had that conversation and I'd raised that issue of the road levy at some point, yeah. And you guys said, no, but that has been sorted. With the finance bill, it's gone down the tubes. So did we miss something? Right?
Yes,
in fact, I even thought, okay, maybe I didn't do my homework very well, only to find it now it is rising again.
We missed a slip road.
We missed a slip road.
Yeah, the slip road.
Indeed, we did miss a slip road at some point. All right, let's see how the weather will be today. Whether the weather be hot, whether the weather be cold, whether the weather be feisty. We will weather the weather. right, extra, read all about it. We don't have the extra, but we do have the Standard, the Daily Nation. We do have as well the Star, People Daily, Business Daily. We cross over now to Uganda as well, or much later. But let's begin with the Standard. A missing opposition is what is headlining the front page of the Standard today. The opposition leaders seem to have been caught off guard in the renewed clamor for change. Unlike in the yesteryears when they give direction on matters politics, they have this time round left the struggle to the youth. The leaders cannot agree on a common path. They claw at each other instead of checking the government. And we have a bite here from Professor Gitile Naituli saying that I think the opposition made the right choice not to jump into the protest alley and that allowed the protesters to identify the problems they want addressed as soon as possible. But what is happening within the House of Azimio? There is an impending implosion that seems to be looming. They don't see eye to eye, and we saw also the return of Men in Black. If you may look at what was happening yesterday, you will see that Raila faces toughest test in politics for a quarter of a decade. Four Kenyans or Kenyan head of state have reached out to Azimio leader Raila Odinga to save their presidencies. Their political nadir moments, essentially making him an enigma in Kenyan politics and political intercessors. But what has been a larger-than-life political picture of Raila is on the verge of being extinguished by the ongoing Gen Z revolution that is turning Kenya's political scene upside down. And that is a story that you want to follow on page 4 soon, right? That enigmatical aura that surrounded him will be a story for the books of history, if anything, on what really the Gen Zs are doing right now is to go by. And that story, you can follow it on page 4 of the publication today. Mudavadi Ruto's new one-man cabinet. All right, one-man, all cabinet. You can follow the story on page 9 of the Standard today. Ex-MP who exhibited generosity on verge of despair. After 2 years of living on my knees, under constant threat and losing millions to systemic blackmail, I wake up to find everything I have worked for over 20 years is being auctioned, says former Keses MP Swarup Mishra. And that story is on page 11 of the Standard today. Media defiant in face of political or police brutality and impunity. That story on page 3. Of course, the abduction of Mashara Gathel. What's at stake in Paris medal chase? That is on the sports pages of the Dailies today. And remember, we have also a joint editorial, and that is on page 14, the same also in the Daily Nation. And you can grab a copy for that editorial comment, also the People Daily as well, regarding what is ongoing in the country. The act on Gen Z's demands and stop harassment of journalists. That is the editorial piece that you want to read in today's Standard, tucked away also in the Daily Nation as well. But this is what the Daily Nation is holding as a splash. Kware man was a shy lover boy with a scare quotations there. The scarecrow quotations, as I normally say it. Prob to neighbors, the beast that has been portrayed of the 33-year-old Collins Jumaisi Kalusha is a stark contrast to the quiet, reserved, and shy and friendly man they have known for some 2 years. They've also seen him entertain a string of women in his one-roomed house. And you can follow the story on page 7. Also, we have an insert there of Rosaline Akoth, whose body was among those found at Kware. Implosion in Azimio over Ruto dialogue. Azimio Chief Raila Odinga's ODM party yesterday gave the clearest indication yet that it is ready to go it alone in a political deal with President William Ruto and his Kenya Kwanza side after Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka was ejected from Mr. Odinga's city offices as he read the resolution of the parliamentary group meeting. You can follow this story on page 10 and 11 of the Daily Nation this morning. On the sidebar, what Ruto has put Mudavadi in charge of all, why Ruto, I should say, has put Mudavadi in charge of all ministries. When he fired his CSs on July the 11th, President Ruto said that some of the functions they performed will be executed by the principal secretaries. It has, however, emerged that certain functions can only be executed by a CS. And you have a story on page 8 of the publication today. On austerity, teachers' welfare to take hit, medical cover, hiring of JSS tutors on permanent terms, and implementation of a collective bargaining agreement to be effected. That is on the back page of the Daily Nation. And stop the madness. It's time for a reset. And that is editorial comment there that you can follow beginning on the front page of the Daily Nation. It continues on page 13 of the Daily Nation this morning. Raila Kalonzo MPs fail to agree on Ruto deal. That is a story on the front page of the Star. Day-long deliberations fail to yield a way forward on how to respond to Ruto's overtures. You have a story on page 7 of the publication today. Also, journalism is not a crime. Stop targeting journalists. And we can see Nakuru journalists demonstrating over the shooting of Kameme FM TV journalist Wanjiri wa Karaoke on Tuesday. Also, how NSSF blunders sunk millions of pensioners' savings. Details have emerged of the investment blunders by the management of the National Social Security Fund that sunk millions of pensioners' money. A new audit report shows that the fund has lost nearly 1 billion shillings arising from its investment moves. Most of the cash was pumped into the stock market and in botched housing projects. You can follow the story on page 4 and 5 of the publication today. No salary boom for teachers as TSC, I should say, decries budget cuts. That story on page 6. And chilly weather. La Nina may come in October. Warns the weatherman, half of the country will experience a blend of chilly weather and light rains, at least for the next 5 days. The Meteorological Department has predicted. The focus ending next Monday indicates grey skies and a frosty breeze sweeping from the western border to central Kenya. And of course, you've experienced this. It's been numbingly cold, and that is bound to continue. So make sure you keep yourself warm and layered up to make sure you don't catch a cold. And People Daily, police force gone nuts. Press freedom from the killing of innocent youth demanding good governance, arrest and detention of protesters. Rogue security agencies now turn their guns on journalists. You have a story on page 4. And you can just get a picture of how also one of the journalists was affected by the brutality of the police. Nakuru-based journalist, that is Wanjiri wa Karaoke, you can see her being carried away by her colleagues after she was shot by police while covering the Gen Z demos on Tuesday. The scribe was shot 3 times in the thigh, is recuperating in hospital. And Azimio in disarray of Ruto dialogue. This was a fracas yesterday, that when Kalonzo Musyoka was reading the resolutions of Azimio regarding the dialogue and the government of national unity, we had the men in black again. We saw them earlier. If we may just remember, or history may bear us down, when also ODM was holding his PG. And we have also them saying, or some protesters in the media should get out. This statement is not going to be read here. So many of our people have died in the hands of the police for a long time now. Well, you can read the rest of the story there on page 3 of the People Daily today. And TSC shocker for teachers after budget cuts. And also that joint editorial that is on People Daily, the Daily Nation, Understand It as well, continues to pass here on the publication. Stop the madness, it's time for arrest. And you can read all that on page 10 of the People Daily this morning. Polisi watemea mate mahakama. Polisi wazuia maandamano ya amani na kutumia vitoza machozi licha ya mahakama kuharamisha hatua hizo. And you have a story inside the publication today. And wanahabari kuandamana kwa kuteswa. Now they'll join the fray as well. Waandishi kulalama Jumatano ijayo kupinga dhuluma walizotendewa na polisi hivi karibuni. And that date has been slated there. You can follow the story on page 3. And samahani ila nitamkosoa Trump, That is what Biden is saying here. And you can follow the story on the front page of the Taifa Leo. Ruto arudia hali yake ya kawaida, achapa kazi kama hapo awali, huku vijana wakiendeleza maandamano ya kupinga serikali yake. That story continues on page 3 of Taifa Leo this morning. Let's see what is happening in the business angle there. And we grab the people, the business daily, supermarkets, warehouses, bit homes in rental returns. That is what the business daily is holding for us this morning. Retail industrial developers enjoy 9.5% yields. Slow price growth keeps residential incomes relatively low. You can follow the story on the front page of the business daily. On page 2 also it continues a pace there. And also State House among losers in 927 million shillings cab budget cuts. Kware blocked from taxing gold, sports, clubs, charges. And you can follow that on page 6. SBM rival now takes 972 million shillings deposit dispute out of court. And Kenya beats Nigeria in artificial intelligence sector investment inflows. That story is on page 14. Ethiopia tops, I should say, Kenya's foreign assets on Safaricom entry. And that story is on page 2 of the Business Daily this morning. Let's cross over to Uganda, where the tears of widowhood is a splash, strength of a woman, death is inevitable. For couples, death creates a complicated maze, from dealing with feelings of loss and figuring out how best to cope to navigating the problems of properties that the deceased has left behind. The perils are endless. You can follow the story on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Monitor today. And of course, figures are given there as well on how they are affected. For instance, 38%, the widowhood rate among persons of 60 years and above slightly increased from 36% in 2012-2013 to 38% in 2016-2017. That story continues inside on page 4 and 5. Uganda airlines spread wings to new destinations, and PhD holder sticks to teaching pupils. And also women still marginalized in media roles. You can follow this report inside the Daily Monitor. Faces behind planned march to Parliament. And these are people who have been earmarked. Remember, what began in Kenya also is spreading in Uganda, Nigeria, and Ghana as well. And the 23rd is a day that they had slotted to be occupying their parliament as well. And this is on the front page of the Daily Monitor. Here are the faces. We hope also they will not disappear and abducted and disappear as well. The citizen in Tanzania, what tripartite renewable energy partnership means. The government hopes that Tanzania will be able to generate at least 1 gigawatt of electricity from renewable energy sources by 2045 through cooperation with the US and India that was officially launched yesterday. And that story continues on page 2. Child safety call for police procedure to be reviewed, and how boy who seeks escape death at the hands of fugitive housemaid. Police in Dar have launched a manhunt for a housemaid who fled after allegedly attempting to slit the throat of a 6-year-old boy at his parents' home. That story is on page 2 of The Citizen, right? We are living in queer times, and those are queer stories as well. Nape apologizes over election jibe after backlash. That is also inside The Citizen on page 3. In Rwanda, Orimutse, as always, we greet you in the morning. Rice mills struggle to buy farmers' produce amid cheap imports. One factory in Nyagatare has more than 2,800 tons in its stock from last season. And you have the story on page 3 of the New Times. And observers commend Rwanda's peaceful pulse. And you can see this particular face that looks familiar, right? Which was one among the observers there, right? If I may cross over to my peoples who are in studio this morning, I may pick Exen Iraqi, because we didn't hear his voice. Of course, you can recognize that face. Yeah, is it? Are you confirming, or you're sure, or you're inquiring if he's the one?
You need to remove the cap.
He needs to remove the cap.
Yeah,
that says, just looking at the caption there, Jogi Carlos from Cheska, and that is the former president of Cabo Verde and the leader of African Union Observers Mission interacting with David Maraga, the former Chief Justice of Kenya, head of the EAC Election Observation Mission, during a press conference to announce the joint statement on the elections on Wednesday, July the 17th. Election observers revealed that Rwanda had a peaceful electoral environment with diligent management. You can follow the story on page 2 of the publication today. Of course, Kagame goes on for the fourth time. After 14 years in Rwanda, American couple returns home with full heart. You can read all about their stories inside on page 4 and 5 of the publication today. Just to remind you, this week, this is a splash on the front page of East African. Task for Rwanda leader in new term. From building an economy characterized by high taxes and debt to dealing with the Congo row. The president's job is cut out for him, and that story is on page 4 and 5 of the publication. The Economist, How to Raise the World's IQ, is a splash. You can grab a copy. And we know what is happening also with the US elections abandoned ship. Democrats waver over whether to bail on Biden. 4, 6, 12, 15, and 17 is where you can follow this story. And of course, momentarily, we understand that we shall also, the one will be hearing from the Deputy President's nominee, that is J.D. Vance, who will be speaking at the Republican convention as well. And in the UK, you know, the monumental victory of the PM's term there. That is what is on the front page. All right, let's look at the editorial cartoons, and I would love now to indulge our panelists this morning. And this is what Victor has drawn for us today. Which way? Confusion here. Which way? Looking at the hand that is pointing every which way, ODM's position on dialogue is confusingly clear. It is this way, that way, that way, this way. This way, that way. Which way? James Abreu. All right, and we saw the fracas yesterday. This is the dialogue, and it seems also the Azimio is imploding, and in a very furtive way, Kalonzo is being edged out. If the optics may read that. What are you reading?
I'm not a politician.
All right.
At least Zakayo has come out of the
but you're a political economist. You can at least you can say, yeah, politics.
All I know is that we are at a watershed moment in the country, and all these things are adding up to what has been really cooking. This is the meal that's about to be served. We ignored a lot of important things in our planning, in our preparation of leadership, to the extent that right now, if you are a reader of literature, I remember the book by Chinua Achebe, Things Fall Apart. The center cannot hold. It is not the home front, it is not the political parties front, it is not the business front. Things have gone south so seriously, and really, like one of the journalists has said, it's time to press the reset button. Reset, so that we go back to default position where good manners of doing business, good manners of running public institution is institutionalized, so that we are able to have something for everyone.
Indeed, indeed. Let's hear from Patrick Obath. Yeah, we have Things Falling Apart, no longer a tease as well. Will be a good title.
No, I go to a sort of a famous Luo song that says, "Atoti this way, Atoti that way."
Let's sing it. Let's sing it.
My voice is not very good today, but I normally sing the way, so today is just, Atoti this way, Atoti that way.
Atoti that way. Yeah, I remember that song.
You remember the song?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's a situation whereby I think we talked about the country not being familiar with, with the workings with Gen Z and all the rest of it, and the leadership in the country really not knowing how to tackle the pressure being brought on them by Gen Z. And here now you come down to a political party as well that has been put under pressure because of the traditional ways that the political party has operated in terms of, being an opposition, but at the same time trying to be an opposition within government. And that has been whatever it is, that has been the history of that political party. But at this point in time, because of the Gen Z pressure and what they're seeing happening, they're saying, no, we don't want to go into that space because we might, we want to support the Gen Z as an alternative vehicle for the opposition. So I think this, I told you this way, I told you that way. That is exactly what you're seeing there.
On that particular cartoon.
They're not sure.
But you can see also Zakayo is clamping down with a check. It's a hand check, right?
Yeah. There's,
so there's a hand check somewhere.
I told you he doesn't know where to go. That check means they're going to be in the firing line of Gen Z, but for them, they've normally been on the side of Gen Z. So, even with the money and everything else, which way to go? I think this is an apt cartoon statement.
All right. So do you think actually that, would it be fair to characterize that the enigmatic character of Raila Odinga is an opportunist?
He's an opportunist in the old order.
In the old order.
I think that is the case. In the Gen Z world, and I think I'm not just talking about Gen Z, but the world going forward, the digital world, and this is my favorite statement. The digital world means things work differently, things work faster, and things are more are more confusing. Yeah. And this is the VUCA. They call the VUCA world. Yeah. That whole thing means that even politics. Yeah. We'll be operating in a situation which is volatile and certain, and so the enigma of Raila, I think, he'll have to really change the way he works, because the traditional way that he's been working will not actually send him into the politics of the future, right? And my personal view was that the opportunity presented to him to go to the AU, which is still an organization that is operating in the old frame, was great. But to try and come back and influence Kenyan politics at this moment in time, one has to be very, very careful what they do, because that could actually make or break them.
All right. Yeah. Professor, what are you reading, Professor Gituro?
Yeah, it's interesting cartoon. I think one thing which comes out, it's Zakayo at least has left the...
Oh, you're looking for the cartoon here, it will be up on
the cartoon.
Yeah, there you are.
At least he has left
He's clamped down.
Yeah, clamped down. But it's coming some goodies there. What is coming out later is irrelevant, actually, as we talk in terms of politics.
It's been rendered irrelevant.
It's irrelevant. And I think the earlier he realizes that, perhaps the better for him and retire honorably. There are three things which come out. One, you can see there is a fight in Azimio. No? What happened yesterday to Kalonzo? It can't be anything else. It must perhaps have something to do with him.
And of course, it was not really a surprise. So that,
indeed.
This is something that has been orchestrated.
Absolutely.
And
he's very good at the men in black. You remember the whole story. The second one, his chairmanship of AU seemed to have had some cold water. I'm not quite sure what's happening that anymore. I think he's trying to see what happened with Uhuru, whether this can also play a part here. But there's a lot of pressure of what's happening to the young ones, where they're even saying the head of public service, if you're over 60, is the first one to go. So he has no space as we talk. I think the right thing is to honorably retire to Bondo or wherever, and become an elder.
All right.
Yeah.
Become an elder. They always say that a good dancer knows when to exit the stage.
Absolutely.
Right? Professor Iraqi?
I see it a bit different, but let me start by correcting my friend to the right and the other one to the far left. Things Fall Apart is not from Chinua Achebe. He just quoted the famous Irish poet, W.B. Yeats.
Yeah, W.B. Yeats, yeah.
So let's always remember that. On the cartoon, I think President Ruto must be smiling in State House. Remember, he disorganized Jubilee. It is in pieces. And now he is disorganizing directly or indirectly Azimio. Because when people are saying we support the dialogue, we don't support dialogue. And the people in Azimio don't want to be on the wrong side of the Gen Z the political debate. So they don't know whether to go to the left or the right. So I think I see a bigger issue in this Azimio or in this Kalonzo-Raila conflict or struggle. Nobody wants to be caught on the wrong side of Gen Z, but they don't know which one it is. But looking at the bigger picture, I think I see Azimio being disorganized. I see Jubilee being disorganized. And it's not hard to guess who is going to gain from the fallout. I don't need to name the person.
You don't want to name the person?
Yeah, but I'm sure you know.
I don't know.
You can see him. You can see him on the cartoon. Unless you're looking at the wrong cartoon.
All right. Okay, we got the serial killer. That is what is also the editorial cartoon in the Standard today. Kware victims rest in peace. You can see the blood spilling there, and it has been a whole circus around also the victim. Questions are abound and hanging on the rafters of many Kenyans' minds regarding the capture of this particular serial killer. I don't know. What has been your observation, Patrick, briefly?
No, I'll look at the broader picture of the DCI in Kenya and look at what has been happening and the abduction of people, what have you, and everything else, and the blunder that happened yesterday. Mashara Gaido being, being picked up, and then all of a sudden they're looking for a different Gaido. I mean, this is supposed to be the highest body in the country that has got intelligence, has got people who can operate, in a very structured, evidence-based manner, and so forth. And what has been happening in the recent past, really questions whether that agency has got the capacity to really do what it's supposed to do. I mean, that for me is the bottom line. And then the Kware, what has been happening in Kware, if somebody, has killed 42 people right under the nose of the police, and whatever it is, it just raises a question as to, is our intelligence gathering, intelligence gathering mechanism good enough in this country at the level of citizens? I mean, I know that when you talk at the sort of the global level of terrorism, what have you, and all the rest of it, there's a lot of cooperation and they do a lot of things, and we've been able to very effectively contain that particular, that menace in this country. But internally in the country, I think the disciplined forces, as they're supposed to be called, it raises a question as to the real capacity of those organizations to deliver on the mandate they've been given. And it's not just, the DCI, it's National Intelligence Services, all these people, right? We've got the serial killer. I mean, this is a great stuff because, it's a knee-jerk reaction. All of a sudden, we've caught this guy because people found these things in the quarry. And it's the same thing that most Kenyans are asking.
Yes.
A police station and a guy doing this and dumping bodies there. Why wasn't it caught before? And for the top body to say, now you've got the guy, for me just is, where is your ability to investigate and find this thing? Obviously, DCI comes in after the effect. I mean, theirs is for when a crime has happened, and they go in and they're supposed to investigate and find it. And, for them to have found somebody so quickly, raises the question. Because it means that all the evidence, all the indicators were there right from day one. Why wasn't this person stopped in his tracks before 42 people, right, were killed? And for me, this, this cartoon just asked the question.
Right, Mreu, what do you think about it as well? We had him being characterized as a pathological serial killer. We didn't see any test or psychoanalysis being done on him to characterize him as such.
I think just what Patrick has said. Every one of us must take responsibility of actions that happen under your watch. For me, as DCI, I would have actually taken time under the situations that we are in to make sure that whatever you bring out here really is factual and truthful. Let me also start, first of all, by condoling the families of all those bodies, of all those Kenyans that have been killed and are being retrieved from a garbage site. It's bad enough to kill one Kenyan, leave alone 42 of them, and even worse, to dump their bodies in a dump site meaning we have lost the sanctity of human life. And for me, that is where we need to really ask ourselves what has hit our country. It is time, it's a watershed moment for this country to really just ask ourselves, can we start telling the truth? Can the DCI tell us the truth? So that even in these very difficult times, the truth will set us free and will give peace to them. But to say that this is a serial killer, and like what Patrick has said, that has killed 42 human beings unnoticed, I think is stretching the truth a bit too far. I think we need DCI needs to give us a bit more information than he has given, and be more focused on the truth rather than just sensational statements.
All right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Professor Kituro?
Yeah. Probably, my friend, I'm not sure these people, the word truth exists in their vocabulary. And I think it's important that to give some level of thinking through how do you take us for granted. But let me comment the Standard and the Nation for really on Guaido. They had really come very strongly. And I know Macharia, Paul Macharia. But I can summarize it. There's a lady called Kefuza Mutua. She has actually summarized it very well. It says, case of mistaken identity or sheer incompetence. Guaido's arrest, allegedly due to mistaken identity, amplifies the lot and disregard for due process within the police service. I can't summarize it better in that. And there's also somebody, Daniel Mide, who comes out and say, you would presume that the police would have intervened and established the identities of the detective and Mr. Macharia. I think that summarizes very well, and I hope Macharia was not checked in the police station, because when you're there, God knows what would happen to you before you're out.
Did you find it also a bit confounding that you're in the police stations, then you have sort of goons coming to capture you in the police station? I mean, who has the temerity to do that? When
Absolutely.
you know this is where the police stations or the cells are. I mean, the cheek just to do that, the audacity to just do that,
right.
It really flies in the face of. It is such a psychological, or what we call it, cognitive dissonance.
And stretching as far as that DCI, unfortunately, gradually smiling that we have found the serial killer. You know, how long does it take 42 to identify this as a serial killer? The bottom line is, it's like they're treating us we don't think. And perhaps we saw what happened last week. Actually, it was a week when he left here, then the cabinet was fired. The IG left, Kwame, he took too long anyway. And it shows you the road. I hope the guy who has come in, Kanja, could put some sense into it. There are one area I tell people I really need to pray to God not to go is to a police cell. They just, I don't know how to describe them, they're just animals in a way. And they have a certain language which is so abusive. I remember one time I was telling, had an issue of an insurance, and I'm telling this coming. It was like that weekend, long weekend, Friday and Monday. And they're very happy when you go in there. So there's a certain, even all the way from the training they get, you need to appreciate the role of a police officer.
Indeed.
I think that is missing. So that's why you get some of these kind of things. They are quick to arrest a few characters here, but they are very, very slow to get the big guys in town.
Okay.
Sheer incompetence. It can't be explained by anything else.
I wonder if any of you have read or you've gotten, or you in any way acquainted with the new report from Maraga on police reforms.
The one from Maranga.
David Maraga, with the task force that, on the police reforms that he had actually given to the president. In light of what is going on, Do you think this is a providential time to look at the reports and see some of the salient issues that were raised? There was the reforming of the police. I think that too, it was before with the police task force that we've had before, of the service, or from the force to the service. But what we can see more right now is not really a service, it's a force.
I haven't read it. I haven't seen it.
I think, Debal, for me, there have been reports and reports from
Right.
the police, starting in the, I think from about 2006, when there was a whole project set up to reform the police force, right? And then there have been reports in between asking what happened. And the basic thing is that the mentality of the police has never been changed. You can change the hardware,
Right.
but you haven't changed the people and the way they have been trained. Starting from Kiganjo, where they're trained, wherever it is, all these other institutes where they're being trained, they're still churning out the same person, right? And I was actually, yesterday I was quite curious to find out how are the police informed on how to deal with crowds and everything else. And there is actually police standing orders that are very clear about how to escalate engagement with crowds and people. And they're not too different from the UN, process on the use of force. I mean, it's basically the use of force I was interested in. And the use of force means you try one thing, right? And one is communication. And the first thing you do is use loud hailers.
Yes.
To talk to people and tell them whatever it is. How many photographs of all the riots that have happened in this country and protests have you actually seen a policeman with a loud hailer talking to the crowds? Zero. Unless I have missed some.
No, you
But
haven't.
they don't communicate at all. They come out with a purpose. So already the purpose is to scatter these people, take them out and do whatever it is. So whatever Justice Maraga did, and before that the IPOA did quite a lot of stuff when they came in, and all the various funded projects that were there before. None of them has really achieved any real change in our policing and the way we handle citizens when they're trying to exercise their rights and when they're trying to destroy property and loot and do all the rest of it. There is an escalation process, right? And the worst thing that can happen is for the police to shout from the top of the trees, "You guys stop, we are coming after you," right? Because that just escalates the issue and so forth. And in my mind, unfortunately, if you remember Tiananmen Square in China, it was exactly the same thing that happened at that point in time. You just got shouting louder and louder from the top of the trees instead of dealing with the issues that are being raised by the crowds in a manner that gives the crowds and the protesters dignity.
Indeed.
At the moment, they're not given dignity, right? And it doesn't matter what happens. It is the training of the culture of policing in this country that really requires a lot of change.
Right. Before we come to you, Professor Iraqi, I want you also to just chime in there. We have a press release that came out yesterday, and from the National Police Service headquarters, and this, if maybe Director may just speak it says, planned public demonstrations by Kenyan youths on July the 18th, that is today, 2024. And it says, since the public demonstrations by Kenyans youth, that is the Gen Z, began in June this year, our country has experienced enormous losses. People have been injured, lives lost, property and businesses destroyed, and livelihoods lost. Criminals have continued to infiltrate the protesting groups, resulting in a troubling trend of disorderly and destructive conduct. While the Constitution under Article 37 provides for the right peaceably and unarmed to assemble, to picket, to demonstrate and to present petitions to public authorities, the Constitution equally provides for the critical role that the National Police Service plays in the national security of our country. It goes on to say, in keeping with our constitutional role and in the interest of national security, we wish to inform the public that we have credible intelligence that organized criminal groups are planning to take advantage of ongoing protests and to execute their attacks, including looting. Acting on this information and in accordance with the international security standards for public assemblies, which require designated leader to coordinate, collaborate, and cooperate with police for peaceful demonstrations. The lack of designated leadership in previous demonstrations has made it difficult to enforce safety protocols. As a result, no demonstrations will be permitted in the Nairobi Central Business District and its surroundings until further notice to ensure public safety. We therefore appeal to all members of the public to remain vigilant in crowded areas and to support our collective safety and security by sharing any information that may aid the police in crime detection and prevention. As a service, we wish to reiterate our commitment to partner with members of all public and media to keep our country safe and secure for all of us. May God bless you, fellow Kenyans, and may God bless our country. Douglas Kanja Kirocho, Acting Inspector General, National Police Service. Professor Iraki, your reaction?
Interesting. Maybe before I go to that, let me react to the previous issue that was discussed by my
It would be nice to begin with you, then we wind up with that so that we can...
very
yes,
good.
please.
I saw that press release, and it left my head spinning. I don't understand how the government can say they are criminals, they are goons, and no action is taken against them. Because if they have intelligence that there are some goons who are going to interrupt these processions or these protests, then they should arrest them. Because it is very clear they seem to have very good intelligence. They are goons, they are criminals. So arrest them, whoever they are. And it is also interesting that they are saying that there is no leadership among Gen Z, which is a reason for not allowing them to protest. So I don't know, I'm not a very good lawyer, but is leadership one of the requirements for you to protest? Must there be a leader? I am not sure about whether there must be a leader.
According to international standards, as they say, there has to be a leader.
Yes.
It seems Bro is in the affirmative that there has to be a leader.
Yes.
I think I want to know the relevant statute or article that refers to that.
I think, can I just jump in?
And then why don't you let me finish? And then
Just
the service, you talked about service. Why did we assume that if you are called John, or if you are called Kamau and we call you John, you are going to change? We have a lot of people who are in jail in higher maximum prison who have got a new name but are not changed. So I don't know why we assumed that by calling the police service instead of force, things will change. But I think one of the issues we are not addressing, all of us, about the police service is not just the way they are trained, but who joined the police service. But I would like to know, if you ask these gentlemen here, they will tell you, I became a businessman by choice, I became a professor by choice, I became an accountant by choice. But how many people in the police service joined the police as their first choice? Because that's one thing we need to look at. Was becoming a policeman, was that their dream career?
Yesterday.
Because one way to perform very well in your career is for it to be your first choice, to have a passion for it. But I think all in all, this particular announcement by the Acting Inspector General of Police, I think it is more than it's more than meets the eye. But I think the starting point is for him to tell us who are these goons, who are these criminals, where are they? You see the way they arrested this guy who killed 42 people. Let them do the same and arrest these goons and the criminals.
Right. Or maybe also they need to liaise with the Kenya Power, which they have been updating the token meters as well. They gave records because as we go with the editorial cartoon there, the hardware that
this is what Patrick was saying earlier.
It is buffering, slowly by slowly, it is still updating. So the paradigm shift from a force to a service.
But I found it very interesting yesterday in The Nation. But you see the guy, it's talking about hardware replaced. The hardware is the guys all over them.
Yeah, the hardware.
The new Gen Z, it's actually in the software. But it has refused to update the software. So the guy is still in the mood of yesterday, who come with the rungus.
Yeah, the hardware also could be the police uniforms as well, so to speak. I mean, the paraphernalia around it,
Can I just comment about the need? You see, Debal, any setting, a situation like what we have experienced in the country, must have a leadership of some sort. And the reason is, as you exercise your rights, Professor, you must recognize I have my rights as well. As a business person, and I feel for the people who hawk products around the streets who are not able to operate under these circumstances. I think the leaders, when you're given a responsibility, you must exercise it within the confines of the law. Now, if you're protesting, which is within the law, you must protest within that framework of the law without infringing my rights. I have a right to open my business. I have a right to create a livelihood. And therefore, a person who calls for a protest must be able to take responsibility of any actions that may spin the protest out of control. And that is where I have a problem. I think, whereas the Gen Zs have a very good reason to feel the way they are feeling, I've had a serious confrontation with my Gen Zs in the family, but I think it's also good to allow the team that is leading this protest to actually raise issues that can be addressed. At the moment, it looks like, again, the same story. Things have fallen apart. Even within that, I think it's important. The message is loud and clear. And I think they have raised very pertinent issues in this country regarding the leadership, quality of leadership, the corruption that's not being addressed, the economic hardships that the country and the people are going through. Those are critical issues. And in fairness to the president, I think he has come out publicly and admitted, yes, I think we've been told the truth. We've heard you. Allow us to reorganize ourselves and reorganize this government. Now, if you demand now, I know microwaves warm food very quickly, and we may not get that sort of solution immediately. But I think it's fair for Gen Zs also to come up with a leadership structure. Because let's be hypothetical. If today the president decides, okay, I'm gone, and they have said they don't want the deputy president, they don't want the speaker, they don't want there is a law in place. This constitution guarantees certain systematic ways of either replacing the president or replacing systems that are there. I think we must allow some sanity. I was there in Egypt when the revolution in Egypt started. I was privileged to Israel, and they were excited, saying our revolution is starting tomorrow. I left just before the revolution started. Many years later, it is still bedeviling them. I don't know whether it worked well for them. So it is good to have this discourse. It is good to have this argument on the table. And I agree with the Gen Zs. Time is up for us to stop wishing things away. Let us sort them out. Let us press the reset button. Let us put in credible men and women who can run the affairs of this country, including some of the Gen Zs. I've listened to some of these intelligent young people advancing very, very serious issues, and very thoroughly too. But we must also allow time so that we are able to onboard these good ideas. And they say good ideas must give way to better ideas. Yes, the Gen Zs have come with good ideas, brilliant ideas. We thought it was working, but now we know better that there are certain things that are not working. So I think we do not want to wish away anything that's happening. Right now, it is a serious time for this country. It's a moment of introspection for the leaders. It's a moment of introspection for the police force as well. The use of excessive force is not allowed. But there's also the issue of identifying these goons. How? The goons don't put on a label. It's so difficult. I don't want to be in charge of police at a time such as this, because they come dressed like normal protesters. But what comes out of them is a totally different, and they're distorting the good message that the Gen Zs have come up with. Really, I have nothing against what the Gen Zs are suggesting. It's time for them to be brought on the discussion table. I was told by one Gen Z, a relative of mine, that my time is up in this world, and that I'm only waiting go 6 foot under, and that they are the real stakeholders. They want to see a good education system, they want to see a good healthcare system, they want to see good roads, they want to be assured of a future. And that's why they feel they're clamoring for this, so that they can get things fixed before they go too far south.
James, I think I sympathize with your view, but I also disagree with it. We talk about a VUCA world, yeah? And we talked about it in business, right? Business, we're all buzzing about it because of the uncertainty of the business situation and the world in which we live in, and leadership. And leadership has got to learn to operate in the VUCA world. And VUCA means it is volatile, it is uncertain, it is complex, and it is ambiguous. That is the time that you are in.
Yeah.
Right? And when you look at what is happening, this is assembly by digital means.
Yeah.
The Constitution talks about assembly physically. Now, if you're trying to apply a physical assembly rule to a digital assembly rule, I mean, you're going nowhere, right? And the whole essence of distributed assembly, as I call it, and this is the term that you use where people meet in a manner that they don't congregate in one place. Their meetings and planning and everything else is done on a digital platform. And everybody can operate.
Yes.
Like, if I provide that platform, am I the leader? No. I am a technology provider.
Yes.
That's all I am. So when people start picking up the people who are providing that platform as the leaders of the thing, we ourselves have not loaded. You know, this software is not loading.
It is still analog.
It is a completely different world.
And
I think I mean, God bless him, the acting inspector general of the National Police Service. Yeah, he is trying to manage a traditional physical assembly of people,
Right.
and how they're convened, right? This is not being convened by a few people sitting up and saying, we're the leaders of this thing, we are going to go to the police station to ask for permission to have a march.
But
The process is so different. This is a very fast-moving change that is happening in a situation, and it is in Kenya. The rest of the world is watching us because this is an unusual thing. It has not happened anywhere else, where the digital world has caused the structure on whatever it is in a country to all of a sudden look helpless and useless, right? And we really have to sit and have a dialogue from the leadership side and from these people as to, guys, we are faced with a new situation. What do we need to do? First of all, to contain it, not using the old ways of bludgeons and whatever it is, like is shown on that cartoon. Yeah, not to use bludgeons and guns and whatever it is and so forth. How can we stop this violence around that place? And the X spaces and everything else, these are the kind of opportunities that can be looked at. And there are other digital means of talking to these people. And I'm sorry that if we continue going the way we are going of using threats, using the current situation, when we are dealing with a completely different situation, this thing is just going to escalate to a point that it should not really escalate to. And you're seeing that happening every time this kind of statement is put out. The Gen Z said, okay, fine, this is what they're talking to us. They will congregate on the platforms and they will design something new, right? Which these guys will then say, okay, they've gone to that space, now let's go with our bludgeons and guns and try and go in that space which you can. So I think, Debal, for me, this
is wrong-headed.
Really is a very, very big provocation that will lead to something that we really don't want to see.
And it's not just in the police force, actually. It's all across the whole sector, even politics.
Even academia.
Even academia. And we've seen also the digital warfare that has been there, especially when we had the Grand Renaissance and the war and the River Nile that was between Egypt and Ethiopia, and people who were affected because of their livelihood on the River Nile, that they were very feisty digital warfare between, Egypt and Ethiopia, if you could just go with what was really happening on the social media. And we had also analysts saying that maybe also we need to look on a digital platform policy, or on digital when you're reconfiguring your foreign policy. That's one of the pillars will be also the digital warfare, because this is where it begins, and then the action now is implemented on the ground. The warfare begin on the social media platform, and then at the planning, as you say. And so we cannot actually use all this analog mentality of bludgeoning of brute force, of, brutality to the current epoch of time that we are in, which is a digital space, which is diametrically different on how police have been trained. And even that particular reform that the task force, I hope that really captured on that as well. If they've missed it, then they've missed the point. We take a short break right now. You're watching Sokoni here on Morning Prime. When we circle back as well, a very important discussion as well, where we have a one-man and all cabinet. That is Mudavadi and Ruto's new one-man cabinet. And we shall discuss this in light of course, the dismissal of the entire cabinet. Does he need support? Right, we're talking about 22 dockets. Is a man who will be really under the gun as far as business is concerned. Take a short break.